listeners, welcome to the latest edition of the Talkie Taka podcast. On the panel today, we have Radha, Ashwin, and RK ready to talk about all that's happened in the world of football in the past week, including some late wins. I wonder if there are any talkie points related to that. On that note, I'll start with you, RK. What's your talkie point and how have you been?
Hey guys, I have been, kind of in seventh heaven for the last few days. It's a very unusual feeling for United fans this season. Uh, I think I created quite a scene at beat ups as well, where I was watching the match with Radha. I don't know, I hugged some random guy. It was too much happiness. So yeah, that last half an hour, 35 minutes was pretty epic. Reminded me in a few ways of the World Cup final, except that the scale of the match obviously was very different. But the way that the match was twisting and turning, it was like a proper, I think, box office, movie stuff. And of course, the last moment, just seconds to go before penalties. I remember what happened basically. So we were clearing a corner, and I remember telling Radha that now that I have sat through 30 minutes of extra time, you guys going at being so tense and anxious, I better watch the penalties as well. And immediately the counter happens, and every United fan just gets up willing them to score. So that I mean, just seconds to go, and Diallo does that finish, and then of course it's all bonkers. Don't even remember half of what happened after that. So yeah, that's definitely my moment of talking moment of the week.
Yeah, hence proving that your jinxing capabilities have not waned at all. Like, I'm going to go and watch the penalties. That's it, done. And there, Radhaji was sitting next to him, waiting for penalties. Ki chalo, wait, theek hai. But no. So, Radhaji, what's your talkie point, and how was it that day watching the game together?
Like, not really waiting for penalties. I had told Abu that I didn't fancy us on penalties, and if anything, if we had a chance, we'd have to do it in 120 minutes. Just like I'd told you guys in the Chelsea match final as well. I just didn't fancy us with some of the takers on the field. But yeah, all through the game, I think, yeah, second half, I think we should have put the game to bed. But first half and in extra time, I think we were very lucky all through to be in that game. Some good spirit shown by the team, even though they played absolute crap to keep coming back into the game, taking the lead twice. So some good kind of spirit and despite leaving a lot of gaps. So yeah, it was, I think, a totally deserved loss. But that's not my talking moment. I think my talking moment is what happened probably just a few hours ago. We've announced the signing of our new technical director. So Liverpool 2.0 is my talking moment. So Klopp has been talking about Liverpool 2.0 in the sense that he's really made miracles happen on the pitch with a completely new kind of core in the team. A team that had the biggest vulnerability in midfield last year, and midfield is now one of our biggest strengths. It's all happened in the matter of months. So he dubbed it Liverpool 2.0 a few months ago. And I was a little worried that, hey, we have a manager search along with Bayern Munich, along with Barcelona, along with potentially some other really large teams in the world. We could really get left behind in the race if we don't kind of close up this whole leadership gap or void in the team. Absolutely swift clinical movement by the board, signing the legend that is Michael Edwards, who did legendary things for Liverpool in his first spell, signing him as CEO of football, who's going to overlook all football related matters for FSG. And he brought with him Hughes, who is the technical director of Bournemouth, currently working with Iraola and co, who's already on his notice period there, and he's just announced that he will be signing for Liverpool at the end of the season. So I can't understate how important this is in a season where we are competing with some of the largest clubs in the world for the top managers in around in the world. So it's good that we've got this out of the way. So now we have some structure. Now we can just go about getting that last piece of the puzzle, which is the manager to replace Jurgen Klopp. So yeah, optimistic.
All right. And then finally, the other United chap who's probably been waiting all this while to break into one of those United chants. Ashwin, what's your talkie point? I wonder what it could be.
What could it possibly be? Okay, I would have given you a hug as well. So I think it was that kind of an evening, right? Like it has been so frustrating as a United fan to watch the team play or not play. I think United is like the number one soap opera that you could possibly witness. And sometimes, the chaos that comes with the club gives you feelings like that, right? So I think that particular game, the way we equalized with fucking Anthony's right foot, that too. Rashford missing the goal right at the end of stoppage time in normal time. Us going back down to 3-2, and then Rashford equalizing again to kind of salvage something, and then Ahmad's fucking legendary Diallo, you know, um, scoring that goal in the way he did. And I thought the chance was gone because the ball was not not in front of him in the sense that he could just take it in his stride. He had to take a touch and then score. So I thought the chance had gone. But the way we won it, the way Trafford was just rocking. I mean, it's one of the best stadiums to go to, and when it's in mood, it's definitely the theater of dreams. And for me, it was like a St. Paddy's Day miracle. I had some cans of Guinness lying around, and I was like, would I even be drinking it? Because I'm pretty sure we'll be mauled by Liverpool. And I then drank more than I should have. But yeah, great win. I think a lot of frustration that was building in with Ten Hag, with the team, and the chaos that we kind of embraced all came through. And there's this one image of this young kid, of this boy who's like celebrating, and he's like crying, and he's like hugging people around him. I think that was all of United fans. So yeah, I wish there are more such moments in this season. But yeah, for now I'll take this.
Hmm.
Swag, you had some last minute drama yourself. So is that your a talking moment, or you have something better?
For a change, I have a Chelsea related hockey point, and yeah, I could pick those goals in stoppage time, but I think just for the memification value, just for the lols, Disasi's disaster class own goal, where he shoots the ball 40 yards into our own net, where there is no Sanchez, there is no one backing him up, and he hits it, and I think he gets a touch from Daka, which probably also shaves the angle. But you can see him look at the ball go, and his initial reaction is to just go okay, and then he sees that it's curling, and he thinks okay, maybe it goes out, and then he sees no, it's going in, and then he has his head in his hands, he sits down like nope, it's done. So yeah, that's my talkie point, and I think I'm still laughing about it because eventually we did manage to eke out a narrow win, even though the scoreline suggests we scored two more goals. But yeah, but let's begin at Old Trafford. I think that's where the most fun action of the weekend was. Definitely, the FA Cup had more drama this weekend compared to the Premier League. Okay, considering that there were four games in both competitions, but one game with extra time, two games with late winners, and one game with City, who are always boring to watch. So yeah, what can we do? But Old Trafford, United taking the lead, Liverpool coming back to go into the lead. As you said, Anthony scoring with his right foot. Stranger things have probably happened, but I don't know of any. And then extra time, Liverpool taking the lead again. Ashwin saying things like, "We have 15 minutes to save this manager's job." RK jinxing Rashford. Then that equalizing goal comes, and then in absolute death of the game, a mad lad scores, and Old Trafford goes berserk. United boys, take us away.
Yeah, so I'll come to Rashford in a bit. But it was surprising to see, how good United were probably the first 25-30 minutes. On the ball, I think we have spoken of, there are some good structures and you see some repeatable patterns. And I think we, like saw that again in this match. We were able to create some good moves, got into the lead. There was also a masterclass by Kobe Mainu in there. He was, he was up against a really world class midfield. If you look at it, probably the best three that Liverpool have, and he stood his ground very well, controlled the game for us. It was in a way like a blessing in disguise that Casemiro got injured, because that allows Mainu to become the holding midfielder. It allows him to pick the ball from the centre backs and try and dictate play, get on the ball, which is what he's good at. Otherwise, with Casemiro, generally he's further up the field. So that was, I think Mainu was a standout player of that first half. And there was a chance he created where he kind of jinked between two or three Liverpool players, laid the ball off to Rashford. Rashford lays the ball, squares the ball very nicely for McTominay, and somehow he can't finish. Could have been 2-0 up then, but then on the stroke of half time, Liverpool, who were not having a good game themselves, suddenly get back into the game, probably 1 minute, 2 goals, and suddenly the match just turned on its head. And Liverpool used that as a cushion to, I think, they had a pretty decent second half, even by their standards, and they started controlling the game. United started getting exposed with familiar problems like the gap between midfield and defense. All those things started coming back, and I think Liverpool should have closed out the game in the second half. I specifically remember a 5-on-2 where all of us were holding our head in our hands, that it I think didn't even result in a shot. So Liverpool were pretty wasteful in the second half, and probably doesn't even reflect in XG. But that's how the game pendulum swung. The last person you would expect to score, equalize, was Anthony. That too with his right foot. Finally he was doing a complete 360-degree spin of some consequence. So he spun around and shot with his right foot. So that was a real surprise, and I think from then the match again became a real roller coaster, exciting match. Rashford, whatever I jinxed Rashford, it was completely from my heart at that point. For me, it was like this was the chance to win the match, and now you're in 30 minutes where again the class of Liverpool is going to hold sway, and whatever I told about Rashford was from my heart. But surprising to see the resilience that we had. We stuck it out. Probably playing lesser games than Liverpool helped in our fitness, and we were able to dominate Liverpool or win the balls high up the pitch. So yeah, and good character, good resilience shown by people, especially Ahmad. I think he pressed very well off the ball. I was very impressed with how he was playing off the ball, and of course, with that kind of determination, he also ended up at the right place at the right time. So really happy for him coming back from a big injury, not getting chances, and finally making it count when he did get a chance. So no one could have scored a better. I mean, I couldn't choose a better player to score a winner than Ahmad with all that he's gone through.
Yeah, before I bring in Ashwin, Liverpool point of view, Radhaji, how was it from Liverpool's perspective? We've talked about how mm, the title challenge is on a knife's edge, and Liverpool are struggling with all the people out. They've started coming back now. So, do you think, as RK says, this was just a case of one game too many for the tired legs?
Um, see, a little bit of that. I think, okay, if you actually look at the Chelsea game, the final as well, there were definite chances that Chelsea could have scored and won that game as well, right? So the personnel, the energy levels had waned even in the okay. To be fair, we had brought on the absolute kids in extra time, and that gave us some freshness. And Chelsea, for some reason, just went into their shell, and we were able to ride it out till that late winner. And we've scored a lot of late winners, and our character has been outstanding. But I've been calling it out now for several weeks that in terms of the top three teams, in terms of the absolute quality and absolute consistency across all departments, I do see it in Arsenal, Man City, and Liverpool in that order. Liverpool has been scoring a lot of points, a lot of big moments through sheer guts, character, will, and like proper mentality monsters and stuff like that. I think this was just one of those games where we rode our luck way, way too much. I think there was a little bit of the Chelsea performance in United in that they missed some ridiculous chances. I don't remember whether it was the 97th, 98th minute of real time or whether it was the end of extra time, end of extra time first half where Rashford, I think, missed that. I think what RK was talking about, that was the end of real time, I think, 97 or 98 minutes. Unbelievable chance. Apart from that, also, there were chances. So I thought we were really clutching on that game. If you just look at the first half, it was set up to be a comfortable Liverpool win. In the fact that Manchester United started well, yes, they were dominant. They got only one goal. They missed some chances, and we got two chances and we scored. It was all set up for a proper 3-1, 4-1 kind of win in the second half. I just don't think we had that clinical edge and the energy towards the end of that game. For the first time, or maybe one of the few times this season, the subs actually I thought slowed us down. So I don't want to ridicule one player because it was just one bad performance, and I know he's not had a great season. But Cody Gakpo, I thought maybe looking at how the in hindsight, maybe he should have started, and then bringing Darwin on when United were all over the place in the second half would have been catastrophic for United. So maybe if they had flipped their roles, where Cody Gakpo had started when we were kind of under the cosh and we needed to be better organized and things like that. So Cody in the first half, and then oh my God, the space that was available in that second half, man. I still remember that one play where I think Soboslai got the ball just maybe 5 yards into his own half, and there was 30 yards to run into before he reached the next Manchester United player. It was just ridiculous. Those are the kinds of things that made me think, okay, United dominated the game in terms of good chances. They should have scored a lot more goals than they did. But looking at moments like this is where I think that, oh man, we've really missed an opportunity here by losing, because there were so many spaces to exploit, and Old Trafford, as always, looked like the largest playing surface that I've ever seen. So there was just so much space, and I felt that perhaps with somebody like Darwin to come on when United were all at bay in the second half and exploit that space, it may have had that clinical effect in the second half. So those are small complaints, but you could see the third goal. I think it was the Anthony. Maybe, yeah, the Anthony goal. Darwin won the ball back deep into his own half and then played the ball square right to a United player, and they ended up going and scoring. You go back to the final counter. Harvey has control of the ball. He's a little lazy, a little leggy. He tries to clear the ball, gets pressed, and they counter and go and score the goal. So proper individual errors, and that's not the first two errors we made in the game. Like I said, we made tons of errors which weren't punished. So it did look like perhaps one game too much of driving your luck. That said, I am not too disappointed as well. We were second best. We still gave it a good fight. We still have two really important tournaments that we're part of, which is the Premier League and the Europa League. And rather selfishly, it makes it easier for me to plan a potential any kind of Liverpool parade that happens. Now I know very specifically when the dates are going to be. So it's making it easier to plan my travel back to India as well from Liverpool. So a little selfish, and obviously I would have loved to win, especially seeing Coventry drawn in the next round. I think that was it's a direct road to the final. So definitely opportunity lost there, but no complaints. We deserve to lose that game.
I think you might have a chance of getting to the Europa final where you would have to go to Dublin and then you can meet Ashwin. So, Ashwin, what were the moments that stood out for you in that game?
Yeah, I think it's about the chaos that United slash Ten Hag like, right? So Radha mentioned about that 30-35 yard space. It's not the only game where we have seen this much amount of space. Like, it happened against Fulham, it happens against Bournemouth. Like, even fucking Luton exploited that space, right? So Liverpool could have taken those chances, but I think Ten Hag is comfortable with that, right? Especially in extra time, he made some really weird substitutions, which I, for the life of me, couldn't understand. And end of the game, you have Anthony playing as fucking left back, Bruno Fernandes playing as center back. So even the best tactician, like you put Pep Guardiola there, and he would be fucking confused what to do, because it was just like proper chaos. And I think that whole feeling of passion, that whole feeling of determination, also spurred Old Trafford on. And I think it is one of those few occasions where the players have really got the backing of Old Trafford as well, and that got them into that next gear. And I want to highlight obviously Kobe Mainu, because he's been playing so well despite how bad the team has been. He's been marshalling that, or rather anchoring that central midfield, especially when Casemiro hasn't been performing that well. Uh, Casemiro obviously wasn't available in this particular game. Of course, the tactics remain the same. I think um, this kind of play is something that the team would get better at once someone like Martinez is back, because he really pushes the defense forward, right? And right now, what's happening is that the three front players go and press. One of the midfielders follows them, and then the defense is like really behind. Like they form almost like a low block, which leaves that bit of gap in the midfield. Martinez would not let that happen. He would push the defense in front of him. He would keep a very compact shape. But anyways, like for once, I don't fucking care about it. I think Trent Alexander-Arnold mentioned that it means more to us than it means to Manchester City. I think this was one of those games where it meant more to United than it meant for Liverpool, because Liverpool are obviously fighting for on four fronts, where at least they were previously. And for United, this is the only shot at a cup, and I think this is Ten Hag's moment of redemption. If he goes on to the final and he wins it, I think he would look back at this game that has saved his job.
Yeah, see, just a couple of tempering points for me on the entire. See, I think I absolutely agree with you that it was definitely the atmosphere. It was definitely uh, it was some will. It was some exciting kind of fire in the game, and it was there, and everybody stood up, and it was passion and all of that. And there are very few teams in the world who generate that kind of result, and we've seen Liverpool. Of course, we've had discussions about this kind of situation happening in the past with Liverpool. We know how many times it's happened, like under Fergie for United. These two clubs do tend to do these kinds of things, and especially at home, right? I'm still, having watched that game, like I was saying a little bit earlier, I'm still not convinced that, again, this is the third time, I think, in the last 6 or 7 episodes that we're talking about this topic, where there is such a huge inexplicable gap between two lines of your team. This is not something that you can just chalo, okay, the result was great, you're going to I'm going to say 95%, 99% in the finals of a cup. That's great. That's something that, and if you win the cup, that's an amazing achievement. But I just don't see, and I know you mentioned, Ashwin, that if Martinez comes in, he's going to push the line. Varane was on the pitch as well. Like, you have seasoned, experienced players on the pitch who are supposed to be leaders, who probably are supposed to do a job like that. So I'm not so sure that one person coming in is going to make such a huge difference to certain aspects of the balance of play and tactical presence, and where everybody should be on the pitch, and who should be doing what. There were just so many gaps and so many spaces to exploit. It seems like a tactical gray area for me. So I'm not buying into the, yeah, saved his job. Yes, result saved his job. I don't think I saw enough in that game to make me think that Ten Hag is saving his job by things that he's doing off the pitch or on the pitch. That remains a big doubt for me.
Yeah, I agree with you, Radha. So overall, this has been the trend across the season. The only, I think, saving grace is, people after the match coming and talking very consciously about, like trying to be compact. So, uh, like the first 25 to 30 minutes probably, United seemed to be deliberately compact. There was much lesser space between the lines than I have become used to over the last few weeks. That was a very good thing. And after the game, Ten Hag also, mentioned that that in the first 30 minutes we were very compact, and then we kind of slackened off. We were not as aggressive, not as confident. We didn't have that belief. And Dallo also spoke about it, where he said that the moment we started giving space between the lines, teams start taking advantage of that. And if we want to go to the next level, we can't allow that. But people like them both talking about that consciously is a good thing, but it seems to be very tactical. It is deliberate, and Ten Hag has also admitted in the past that he would prefer these kind of defenders, Lindelof, etc., to be deep, because they're better at defending their box. So we can't. So so there is a big dilemma going on there, and that is what is affecting the team. He wants to be compact, but he doesn't trust his players, who are currently playing there, to be compact, and he takes a conscious call to drop back. So, I mean, as Ashwin said, maybe once Lisandro is back, maybe once we sign a very pacey centre back, hopefully in the summer, then we'll actually get to know if and when Ten Hag stays in the job. But what was really positive for me about Ten Hag in this match was the substitutions that Ashwin was referring to. So I couldn't make head on tails of it, but it probably didn't make tactical sense at all, compromising the shape of the team. But you know, to be a guy who, he could have been easily conservative and afraid of Liverpool, but he took the opposite approach. He had only one. It was very clear to see that Ten Hag only had one thing on his mind, that was to win. That is probably something that, it's a sign of a United manager. That is something that is needed. To be very bold is also a good hallmark, but of course he has to prove himself in the tactical aspect of it as well. Just a small trivia before we kind of move on is that we are facing Coventry in the semi-final, and there's a very interesting tidbit there. Mark Robbins is the manager of Coventry, and he's the one who is the United mythology says kept Fergie in a job in the same competition. 1990 quarterfinal is when he's came up with the winning goal. So that's going to be something which let's see whether that's part of destiny or Ten Hag is just going to be another failed chapter.
I was 100% sure RK was going to swing in a jinx there, but it turned out to be something else. Surprise, surprise. But just one quick thing before we move on. We didn't have an episode last week, so I just want to touch upon the big game, Liverpool versus Man City, the week before this one. Um, it was a draw, but that was a game that really gave me a lot of confidence and self belief in our place in this title race. Obviously, we got pushed down from first to second, but the manner of play against Man City, who has always been one of the toughest opponents that we can face. And I remember telling you guys before the game that I would rather play Man City now than Arsenal. And I think that came out very clearly. Man City has gaps to exploit, they have weaknesses to exploit, but I've never, even we've blitzed Man City in the past. We've thrashed them. We've scored 4 goals in the matter of 15, 20 minutes. We've done that kind of stuff, but it's never been such a sustained, controlled period of superior play. So the way that we played against Man City really gives me a lot of confidence and hope that we can actually stay neck and neck with these two teams for the rest of the season. So yeah, big performance from the Liverpool guys against Man City. Like I was saying, the first time I've seen us consistently, and not, we dominated possession, which we very rarely do against Man City. We dominated possession, we dominated chance creation. We were not frantic and created panic that we usually do when we beat them. It was just a controlled, better footballing performance than Man City. And yes, we couldn't get over the line. Luis Diaz had a ton of chances which he missed. Maybe we'll come to rue some of these chances like we did perhaps at Anfield versus United, at Anfield versus Man City. Maybe this will all add up at the end of the season. But I had less belief than I did before. I had less belief than I do now before the game about our chances this season, and I'm a little bit more optimistic that we can stay with these two teams now.
All right. Yeah, even I thought that RK was going to swing in something about Coventry, but yeah, as he mentioned, spoiler alert, guys. Coventry made it to the semi-finals. Amazing run for them. They've made it the championship team in the semi-finals. They beat Wolves in another thrilling encounter. Uh, didn't see it. I don't think any of us did, but good luck to them. If they can, if somehow they manage to beat Manchester United, the funny thing is that the FA Cup final is scheduled one day before the Championship playoff final, and they could be in both games, so they might just stay over in London for a couple of days, play the FA Cup final, play the playoff final, and then go back home. Maybe a Premier League team. You never know. Man City beat Newcastle 2-0. I would say that's the end of Newcastle's season. I mean, they are nearabouts the Conference League spots, but that's not something that they're looking at in terms of building their empire, I guess. So this would probably herald the end of a disappointing season for them, considering they were in the Champions League. They did have that game against PSG where surprisingly they won very comfortably, but yeah. And then finally, Chelsea won. Okay. Actually, apart from Disasi, I could have had two or three talkie points just from Raheem Sterling. He takes the penalty, which usually is Cole Palmer's job, screws it up. Then he assists Cole for his goal. He takes a free kick, which probably lands in Mars. I mean, all the angles I've seen on Twitter or Facebook or wherever, it it never really shows where it
So,
finally
so
ends up.
you remember that ball in orbit that Sergio
Uh-huh.
Ramos sent? I think it was Sergio Ramos, right? That old meme. I think
Yeah, yeah.
there's finally some
There's a
competition.
collision.
There's going to be a cosmic event right now is going to happen. But oh my God, it was such a brilliant moment. So we were all so RK, me, DSK, up. We were all at a bar watching the game.
Oh God.
We watched that amazing Disasi goal, like mind blowing goal, and then that Sterling moment was just outstanding. Oh man, I was just complaining to Up when he was lining up to take the kick. Why is he taking a free kick? You have the likes of Palmer, you have so many people with technique in that team. Why is Sterling even in that conversation? And then he takes it and it flies. Oh man, that
And
is
it's
hilarious.
and his technique was so hilarious. You see all these memes about Raheem Sterling running, right? He runs like Velma from Scooby Doo. But like this guy, he takes like some 15, 16 steps, and then he runs on the spot. He makes a turn, and then he gets underneath the ball. It's like just really weird technique. Um, but yeah, Sterling. At least he got the assist, and at least Chelsea won. So Swag, you can
Yeah.
be proud of that.
In fact, he got a lot of boos when Mudrik was substituted because people were hoping it was Sterling who was going to be taken off. So a lot of Chelsea fans booed that decision as well, and there was abuse pointed at Poch saying that you don't know what you're doing or who you're supposed to take off, considering Mudrik's been doing slightly better than Sterling in the recent few days, including that goal against Newcastle, which he scored last week, which was pretty good, to be honest. But yeah, we went into the lead, then one disaster moment, and then we lose our heads, which is not surprisingly what has happened quite a lot of times this season. And then they score a really good goal, and then with we're thinking, okay, this is going to go to extra time, which probably neither team wants, considering Leicester have had a busy championship season as well. But then surprisingly, we score two goals in added time, so we make it through just by the skin of our teeth, even though it says 4-2. And considering we're
So
facing Man
Swag
City,
was, talking of Chelsea not being in form and finally winning. I was just checking the results. Last 8 games, the only game Chelsea have lost is the Carabao Cup final. So 5 wins, 2 draws, and 1 defeat in the last 8 games.
huh?
And it
But
So
went
let
into and it went into extra time, so technically it's a draw.
okay, whatever,
yeah,
whatever that logic. But yeah, I mean, you guys look at the performances, you guys look at the competition, and then you tell me, okay, beating Leicester with two injury time goals. But yeah, it's okay. Like we've made it to two semifinals this season. As I said, if we finish in the top half and we see some progress compared to last season, I'm okay because I've given up on getting into Europa or Champions League a long time ago. And if we make it into Conference League, that's apparently bad for us because then we get screwed financially quite badly.
I,
So we,
I, I think in general, Chelsea has been a really good cup team, right? So I know they didn't win against Liverpool, but they could have won against Liverpool, right? And they did have a really good game against City as well. They got the draw after all. So I think in a 90-minute game, when it's a one-off tie, like for all you think Chelsea could pull it off, right? Like I'm
yeah,
I'm
you
I'm
never
not
know.
going to say, and then you do get Europa League as a result if you win the cup, right? So there's that
Hmm.
added motivation of winning the cup for sure. And of course, Poch hasn't won much in England, or has he won anything
Anything,
in England? I don't
nothing.
think he's won anything
No.
in England. Right? So, like, I mean, there is plenty of motivation to win. So I wouldn't just rule them out. Plus, you have
but
Sterling.
Carlton Palmer, like Liverpool fans have talked about Conor Bradley. Like United fans talk of Mainu. It's not an academy product, but what a player! He's kind of. I think he's become
I'm
the
gonna have
linchpin
to
of
just
the
quickly.
Yeah,
player.
I'm
just
gonna have
do
to
it.
quickly. Sorry, I'm sorry. He said Carlton Palmer, who's one of the most
Oh
diabolical
my God,
uh,
Carlton Palmer! What am I saying?
commentators slash studio
Audience.
personalities I've ever seen in football. Weird guy in 10 sports. You
Yeah,
called
sorry.
Cole Palmer
I don't know. I
Carlton
don't know how
Palmer.
I remembered his name.
Yeah, just call him Cold Palmer. That's what everyone else does.
But I think City would be like kicking their foot in the ground. Like he has been a revelation. Having said that, they have Ford, so like he would have probably played in the same spot as or competing
They,
at the same spot
they
as
have
Foden.
Oscar
So
Bob now playing in that spot, who you thought was not a real person.
he,
So
Yeah, so Cole Palmer, I think it's just one of those unheralded moves that I didn't expect to happen at all in the summer. I didn't hear anything about it. He kind of went under the radar for me at Man City as well. Apparently, he made some 15 appearances off the bench for Man City last season. I didn't really notice him, but he's just been the best signing that Chelsea have made, and it's a real achievement considering they've made like 750 signings, right? So it's not a mean feat to stand out in that crowd. Um, uh, that said, I just got reminded of the pre-match Pochettino moment where he goes through, he shows everybody the list of, see, so many players. Why do you think I
it's
have such a big squad? Because I'm giving so many debuts and all. See, all fair points. All, yes, there have been injuries. Yes, you've given a lot of people a chance. Yes, you had to do it. But I feel like the public sentiment and the general mood in the world when you spend £1 billion is not going to be, oh, let's put a shoulder, or let's put an arm around the shoulder of the guy who spent £1 billion and got like 25 new players. So you can understand why people will criticize or not look at the silver lining or not look at the difficulties that Poch has faced, even though obviously he has faced a lot of difficulties from a squad availability point of view. But some of the things that they've done, some of the decisions that they've made, some of the players that they've bought in, they made that decision. They decided not to buy a 25-year-old experienced player and buy a 21-year-old or a 18-year-old or a 19-year-old or whatever, right? So if you have to sleep in the bed that you make as well a little bit. But yeah, it's really refreshing to see Cole Palmer really outshine all those European and some of the big players or the big names from other leagues that have come into Chelsea. And I think he's just one of the best players in the league. I know Ashwin mentioned they have Ford and City, but I feel like this season Cole Palmer is right up there with anybody in terms of how good a player he's been.
he's been the best Chelsea player this season, that's for sure. Probably in the running for young player of the season. We'll find out towards the end of the season. Right, moving on to the Premier League then quickly. We had 4 games. Luton drew with Forest again, a late goal. I mean, they were unfortunate to lose 4-3 after going up 3-0 against Bournemouth earlier in this week, but then drew against Forest, who now have been docked 4 points. So the relegation battle has heated up because Burnley apparently beat Brentford out of nowhere and things like that. So there are still more teams which are in play, and we're still waiting for Everton's second PSR issue and Forest now to appeal these points. There's just too many moving parts right now in the relegation battle. So we'll probably touch that once we have at least some more clarity. But in the battle for the top 4/5, depending on whatever coefficient, there's too much maths this season, I think, in the Premier League. But still, you would have expected Spurs to gain some ground facing Fulham, lost 3-0. First ever game in like 30, 40 odd games that Spurs failed to score. And so Fulham managing a shutout, and Villa had the perfect chance to capitalize on that the next day, but couldn't. Okay, they were West Ham away, so tougher opposition. But yeah, the battle for the fourth, fifth/sixth, if you consider United to be part of that, is still ripe.
I was actually really surprised. I was, again, like I mentioned, RK, me, DSK were watching the match together at the bar, and I was just keeping track of the results in the Premier League, and I saw that obviously Spurs got whooped, and that Aston Villa, West Ham actually took a 2-0 lead in that game when the second goal was VAR ruled it out or whatever. So when the 2-0 update, and I saw that 2-0 update, I told these guys, oh my God, this is the perfect weekend for United from a Premier League point of view. But then I realized that United are still like quite a significant distance off. So they're still 6 points off, I think, fifth place, and maybe 7 points off fourth place. I don't remember the exact
Yeah.
numbers, but that actually caught me by surprise. I didn't realize that United was so far off from the other two teams right above them. But yeah, this would have been the perfect opportunity for say a club like United, where both teams above them kind of struggled. It so happened that after I said that, as Aston Villa ended up getting an equalizer and getting a point as well out of that game. But yeah, very. I think that fourth place, we've reached that part of the season. If you recall the season that Leicester won, Spurs were doing everything that they could to kind of not win the league, and I wonder if we're heading into that kind of territory for fourth spot as well. Aston Villa, we've all talked about it, that hey, great, like really nice work, you're doing really well, but did we really believe that they had the legs to stay the whole race? Perhaps not. We had the debate about that maybe 3 episodes ago on this pod. But Spurs 3-0 at Fulham, that was a real shocker. I didn't expect that at all. But a quick shout out to Muniz, who's just going from strength to strength every game. He's looking like a real player. I don't even know where he came from. I don't know, like, what happened there, how he suddenly landed up there. But he seems the perfect, like I mentioned it a few weeks ago, he looks like the, I'm sorry, I'm blanking on his name, that Wolf striker, Raul Jimenez. He looks like the Raul Jimenez from, say, 5 years ago, 4 years ago. Real all round top player. So, and he seems to be riding that momentum with Fulham. So, great result, great performance from them. I'm just not sure now. I was very confident that Spurs would get that fourth spot. But looking at a loss like this, I'm now beginning to wonder, are there like some jittery legs happening at Spurs as well?
You by Wolves striker Raul Jimenez, you surely mean current Fulham striker Raul Jimenez,
Yeah,
whose injury has actually given Muniz the chance to play. But yeah, I think
yeah.
Ashwin has a point.
Not on him, but I think it is very looking very likely that the top five places would go get the Champions League because West Ham beat Freiburg as well. So it is now looking very likely. Having said that, as Radha mentioned, Spurs have a 6 point lead over United, but also Spurs have the most difficult fixtures of the three between United, Aston Villa, and Spurs. So I mean, I think it's still a lot to play for, and I think Ange also mentions it in his post match interview that there's still 10 games to go. Even if he had won, it wouldn't have meant that we have the Champions League spot backed in. So I think there's still a lot to play for. Of course, very disappointing from a Spurs perspective. Uh, Very disappointing from a FPL perspective also, because everyone ended up taking a lot of Spurs assets and captaining them. But I feel Spurs and Villa both have uh, that in them, that they can kind of lose some ground, and that gives that glimmer of hope for United as well. I'm not saying that United will get the fifth spot, but I think both Spurs and Villa have it in them to do that.
And what was most shocking, shocking about that Spurs result was just the previous week, as Radha mentioned, we didn't do the pod. They had a brilliant result against Villa, so that kind of made them real favorites to clinch at least top five. That was also a very good game, actually, especially in the first half. Very, very good tactical game, where both kind of cancelled each other out, both pressing high, both trying to pass through the lines, and not really able to create too many chances. But Villa had, so Villa were much the better team in the first half, in terms of the chances, if not in general play. But after Spurs scored the first goal, Villa kind of self-destructed. So after that performance from Spurs, to see them go to Fulham and lose so tamely was a real surprise. So definitely they are showing that even under the new regime, they are still retain that Spursy DNA. So that definitely gives some hope. But also, rather, what a player Muniz. Even I wanted, like seeing his recent run. The first question that came to my mind was, how come a club like United, who don't even have a backup striker, and look for people like Weghorst and stuff, this is the kind of scouting probably that teams should do to unearth. But then looking at his stats, he's been pretty ordinary before this. So, it- but looking at the way that he has adapted to life in the Premier League, doesn't really look like he's anything short of top class. Great movement, great physicality. Interested to see more of this guy.
Yeah. Finally, you've talked about the Champions League. So just a quick run out. My daughter doesn't agree. Of the Champions League draw: Madrid versus City, PSG versus Barcelona, Arsenal versus Bayern Munich, and Atletico versus Dortmund. As I was saying before we started recording, all four games, I think both the teams would say that we can win this tie, and fairly balanced ones as well. Like Arsenal, this new iteration of Arsenal can take on Bayern, who are currently weaker than usual. Madrid and City are the behemoths. PSG versus Barcelona, both have some weaknesses but fairly well matched. And Atleti Dortmund, the would be the underdog of the semi-finals, the winner of that leg tie.
So yeah, sure. All ties, both teams in it. Yeah, sure. Agreed. But I think very clearly there are three teams that are far better than the other five teams, and we talked about it already last week. Real Madrid, Man City, and Arsenal. For me, those are the three teams. And I mentioned that I think Arsenal is the only team that can really compete with Man City and obviously Real Madrid. And it's a big bonus that Man City and Real Madrid got drawn together. I think if I'm an Arsenal player or an Arsenal coach, I would always think that if I need to do anything in this Champions League, I would have to knock out one or maybe two of them. So, in that sense, it's a huge bonus that there's one of them going to get knocked out for sure. I do fancy Arsenal against Bayern Munich. Nothing that I've seen of Bayern Munich this season is really that scary. And everything that I've seen of Arsenal in the league, let me clarify, everything that I've seen of Arsenal in the league shows that they can keep a team like Bayern Munich out. They can hold a very strong defensive line. And obviously, they have the firepower to hit teams on the other side of the pitch as well. There's obviously the big distinction that somehow Arsenal in Europe have a little bit of this perhaps imposter syndrome, or they have this crisis of confidence, or and things like that. And obviously it does play on everybody's mind when you've never won a tournament. But broadly speaking, I think Arsenal would find themselves in a superb position if they beat Bayern, and I think they're very capable of that. And Man City versus Real Madrid is the clash of a lifetime. I think it's that Champions League final type of clash, and it's happening a couple of rounds early. I think that Man City, I think it's a more even tie than it was last season, because one, Man City are not the team that they were last season. They're not the dominant force, and two, Jude Bellingham. I think that's the X factor that is different from Real Madrid last season as well. So I'm really excited about that tie. Can't wait to see what happens there. I think whoever wins the two ties, Bayern Munich, Arsenal match and the Man City match, I think they're going to be the finals unless the draw has something else to tell us.
Yeah, the draw has already happened, so the winners of those two teams
They are on
will
opposite sides.
no,
Okay, so
they're on
then
the
yeah,
same
that's
side. They're on the same side. So
oh
it's going to
oh
be
my
City
god,
versus Madrid versus Arsenal versus Bayern, and it's going to be PSG, Barcelona,
that
and
is
Atleti
just
Dortmund.
that is just bogus. But okay, I
Yeah,
mean,
that's so crappy because one of these four teams, you know, like the other half is pretty ordinary if you look at it in terms of how they've done the season as well. You know, Atletico are struggling, Dortmund are kind of struggling, Barcelona have been struggling for the longest time. Now I think finding some form, but and PSG are PSG, so it's pretty disappointing that one of those four teams is going to be in the in the final. I was actually hoping that Atletico go through, and because Atletico are always interesting when they come up against better teams, but that's not also going to happen. So, but yeah, Atletico probably reaching the final would be better in terms of a spectacle for the final than maybe if PSG or Barcelona go through. But yeah, United watchers will be looking out for Sancho, hopefully adding a few million to the transfer kitty for United in the summer as well. So hope he continues to do well.
He can complicate your life though, but if you mean Sancho's scoring and winning games,
I was
that
gonna
means
say.
Germany's coefficient goes up and England's goes
I
down.
was gonna say that. Fuck him. Anyways, I know Radha mentioned about Arsenal being favorites. I agree that Arsenal are favorites versus Bayern, but I think Bayern are definitely one to watch out for. Like they have been poor in terms of how they usually their usual standards for sure, but they are better than the Bayern that was last season. It's just that Leverkusen have had such a great season this time around that they find them in the position they are in. And they have Harry Kane, who's extra motivated again, like to get a hand on any trophy, especially if it's a game against Arsenal, he will be doubly motivated. You have Tuchel, who's a really good cup manager as well. So I wouldn't say that Bayerns are like slim picking, but of course Arsenal are favorites in that game. I agree to that. I think Arsenal would have loved to get someone like a Dortmund or even Barcelona, I feel, as opposed to Bayern. I think Bayern, if they're not in the top three favorites, they're probably like the fourth favorite out of that. But yeah, I don't want any of the German teams to win because I don't. So I want England to have five teams in the Champions League. Hopefully, United get the fifth spot, which could make things a bit more interesting. But let's see. I think it's a cracking group of games, and I
Yeah,
can't.
it's definitely cracking, especially because of the history of Arsenal and Bayern. I remember
Oh
how
yeah,
we
their last
pulled Arun's leg very
10-2.
badly. I think in the 2017 or something it was basically 10-2 on aggregate, was it? So
Yeah, the last
Arsenal,
time Arsenal were in the Champions League, actually, it was
yeah.
10-2 on aggregate. And I think Muller posted a video about it as well. And the funny thing about it is that when Muller posts a video on Instagram, Bayern just maul the other team. I know it's not going to happen, but if it does happen, it's going to be super.
Yeah, so Arsenal have a lot of baggage to overcome, and like whatever you say about Bayern, they have this. I know I hated Mourinho for talking about it because he did it against Sevilla of all teams. They don't have a Champions League heritage, but Bayern have a proper heritage, and Arsenal don't. So it definitely makes a difference. The mentality, especially playing one leg at home in Munich, it's not going to be easy at all. Uh, there is definitely a skill gap, tactical gap between the teams. Not a great difference, but there is a difference. But Bayern have more than enough experience and mentality to overcome that. So but like for one, I'm definitely going to be watching at least a couple of those ties.
Yeah, and quickly into the Europa League, just for the coefficient chat, Leverkusen will be facing West Ham. So unbeaten Leverkusen so far coming up against Moyes' cup specialists, and Liverpool will be facing Atlanta. Italy are the third nation who are in the race for the coefficient extra spot, and I think they are best placed actually to
I
get it.
think I think Italy are guaranteed to get
Yeah, almost
or
guaranteed.
something.
It's like
Yeah.
99% or so. So these two games might swing that coefficient chart a bit more, but I think the Europa League might be building to a Leverkusen Liverpool finale, and
But
that would be a fun way to
yeah,
watch.
so that's what I was going to ask. What's the draw like for the next round? It's they're on the opposite halves, Leverkusen and Liverpool.
So this I think I have to check because I did not do that.
I think there is a chance that Leverkusen and Liverpool can play. It would be quite romantic. Let me put it that way.
Yeah,
It's a passing of the veterans, so to say.
Yeah,
Klopp
so it
bowing
is.
out
It is. I
against.
think it is. I think it's they're on the opposite sides
They're on
from
the
what I
opposite
remember
sides. Yes,
because
they
yeah.
are.
So, but yeah, I mean, just a quick shout out again to Chabi Alonso and Leverkusen. If you guys were following that game, so I was watching the Liverpool game. By the way, stunning, stunning performance from Liverpool in that second leg as well. Just blew them away in the first half. I think 4 goals in 13 minutes or something like that in that game. After I finished the game, I just checked to see what Leverkusen are up to, and they were losing on 90 minutes, and they ended up winning in
Super.
normal
Yeah.
time. Just incredible. I don't know. There's something written in the stars. I think for Chabi and Leverkusen this season. 10 points ahead in Bundesliga. They had a tricky game this weekend again. Again, they were able to come up with the goods one by one goal. So yeah, he's just getting over the line. The team is doing what he needs it to. Something's written this
Let
season.
them
It
have
looks,
it.
it just feels like a special season for him and Leverkusen.
Yeah, let them have it. They had that season where they had everything in their grasp and everything went out, which is why the Neverkusen story started. Let them have the. They're the only Bundesliga team left in the German Cup. They're 10 points
Yeah.
ahead in the Bundesliga, and they might potentially be in a chance to win the Europa League. So from 0 to 3, they might go to 3 to 3, whatever it be. Let's see. But I think that'll do us for today, listeners, and we'll see you next week once we reconvene for a bit of maybe international chat and previewing the games ahead. And that's all from us now. Bye bye.